Hello guys, welcome back, Blessed be. It's gonna be another 4th of July one. Yeah, I know, everything has this cool yellow cast to it, yeah. I'm like looking at it, I'm like, what went wrong with my, camera? But I'm just gonna go with it. It kind of looks like warm and romantic. I do have like a little tiny light on. Little tiny lantern, but this is not doing it. This is not doing it. These are at the dollar store, by the way. And I do have the fake fireplace on in there, but okay, and now we're back to pink, so kind of pinkish. So I must have naturalized it by bringing an actual yellow light in. That is interesting. Anyhow, your host with ADD. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm diagnosed someday. It's like a cat runs a channel. Oh, look. And there's a fly in the room, and I'm like, oh my god. But since it's going to be the 4th of July, and I think any holiday that has a lot of emotion, both positive and negative, towards it, is kind of a magical in-between time for us. A lot of witches won't do it, but I'll do it because I'm like, if there's all that energy floating around, as long as you know what you're doing, don't just go out if you just became a witch today and start grabbing off hunks of stuff. Kind of find your path, kind of find your way, and use all the energy. I mean, for the last 3 days, it sounded like I'm getting shelled by the north and the south all at once. So it sounded very strange. And to me, the Civil War is always like wrapped up with the 4th of July, because we used to go out to, and we're getting to the subject, used to go out to the Gettysburg for the 4th of July. Goddess is my witness, you will trip over ghosts in that town. I mean, you could be like psychically dumb and deaf, and you will be like, oh my god. So if you ever want to look for ghosts, go to that town, especially around the 4th of July. It's not all people having a laugh with you. It's not all people faking stuff. It's not all people trying to sell you gewgaws. There's a lot of stuff going on there. There was a place called the Lormer House. Oh my god, so much stuff. Anyhow, since it's 4th of July, I'm going to do a video on a subject we'll never talk about again. I talked about them a little bit, the good folk. One, I don't like talking about them because it's funny, pagans, witches, whatever you consider yourself, everybody has that line. You can talk about the gods. Most pagans are okay. You can talk about crystal energy. Most people are okay. You can talk about magic. Most people are okay. You start talking about the good folk, and they look at you like you just said Jesus flew in from Jupiter and wants to sell the muffins. They're like, what? You believe in them? You do know they're fake, right? You do know, like, Disney Tinkerbell doesn't exist. And so I don't like talking about them for that reason, and I also don't like talking about them because off and on, as I did research all throughout my life, there is this vast belief, a very strong belief, that once you start talking about them, researching them, even like reading a book or watching a video, they know. They're just tuned in, they know. And I've always experienced it. If I push a research to a certain point, all this stuff just starts happening in my life. Like today, I had precognition. And it was weird because it actually saved me. I had this vision of this white car and walking out in front of it. And darn it, if the vision didn't stop me in my tracks where I was, and I stopped, and then as I went to walk again, I saw this white car coming. And I got extra far off the road. And I'm like, how more specific could they have been? And you could say, well, that could have not been them. It could have not. I don't know, but I've noticed that, like, the last maybe week or less, I've been listening to a lot of fairy stories. Well, some people say don't call them that. Some people say call them the good folk or the others or whatever. I know, like, there's one guy, you watch his videos and he'll say they love being called the good people, little people, and there are like other people like, oh my god, no, they'll snap your neck. Find out what works for you. Find out what works for you. I often say them, they. I am as big as possible. And when I used to have Big Mama out here, the giant pine tree, it was a regular thing that somebody was leaving sticks as gifts. Like, I would leave food out, and I would be leaving food out for, like, say, foxes or something. Or, like, it wasn't, like, around the holidays, it would be, like, for them or for the gods or something. But usually it would be, like, for foxes or something, and I'd start finding little gifts in return. Like, where I didn't put them. And no, my parents weren't, like, so into whatever that they would have done it, because this was, like, as an adult woman and I was taking care of my parents. And it was creepy. I didn't like their energy. There was something like about their energy. Now, I've had to get used to a lot of different energies because every pantheon you work with, you'll notice they have a distinct energy to them. Each god has a distinct energy within that pantheon, but as a whole, the pantheon just kind of has this energy, and you either jive with it or you don't. And with them, the energy I was getting, it was like, no, not evil, not bad, but just this kind of like jittery, make you nervous, kind of like dark energy. So I've usually done stuff like, please stay away. I've never really worked with them. I've done research, but then when it comes to the point where stuff's starting to happen, I'm like, no, please get away from me. I won't say the T word, but please get away from me. You don't say thank you to them, by the way. No one agrees on why you don't say it. I mentioned in other videos, some people say it's because it's with full phrase was thanks be to God, but you just don't say it to them. And even when I did make tiny little forays into working with them, I was never sure if it was I was actually working with them or I was just a little bit nuts, or it was Loki having a go at me. So I've always kind of discounted it, but it's funny that it like always keeps coming and popping back into my life, and you're probably thinking, well, you're pagan, is going to be pretty common for fairy stuff, good folk stuff, whatever, to pop up into your life because, right now they're all the rage, from the cute little winged ones that a lot of people post on Facebook to the kind of erotica that makes me want to barf to everything else. And that's kind of like a thing we could talk about too. You definitely would not want one to seduce you. I know that's like popular erotica right now. People that don't actually believe in faith think they have it unlocked. It's like, no. Classically, if they seduce you, you will pine away. And they will leave you to die because they don't give a cat's patootie about you. It's just like a game to them. And they're so alien to us, they'll go around, they'll do it for the rest of their life. And they have incredibly long lives. It doesn't matter how emo you get or if you kill yourself. They're not going to care. They're there for however long they're there, and then they're gone. It's happened to women and men and that. No, it's also happened that some will marry and such. But, you never know what you're going to get. And that's the danger of working with them, that a very malevolent fairy can come into your life and seem all peace and sparklies and whatever and all loving and don't worry, I'm going to be here forever. And then, after the affair is over, you're pining your heart out. Or I was watching a video and a young man was talking about working with them, and everything had gone great while he was working with them, and he like felt all this peace and love. But they're very extremely clever. The bad ones, and I don't like to say bad, they're not bad, they just don't give a crap about humans. And if they could wipe humans off the earth and take it back over, they probably would. I mean, they're not going to actively come after every human on the planet, but they are more dangerous. They are more hostile towards humans. They are not a fan of man. And what he didn't realize is that he might have seen benevolent ones, and either they might have been an illusion or the benevolent ones were there and were helping him. And I believe the benevolent ones probably were there helping him, but the very real danger is when you throw a calling card out. Even if you put stickers all over it, only for nice fairies only, please, dark and scary, don't show up. They will all show up. And that is a problem of working with them. It's a huge, serious problem. Like, you don't get to, with them, you don't really get to pick and choose. I know a lot of people know, they say, well, I only work with these tiny, sparkly little light fairies. The dark ones are around too. And dark doesn't always mean bad, by the way. Just because they're dark and their energy is kind of scary, it doesn't mean they're necessarily evil. But they're known in the classical stories, which you have to respect, from Ireland and Wales and Britain and everything. They're known to kill people. They're known to kill people because you just made them mad. You touched a fairy mound, or, the hills, or you blocked a fairy path. And these are like serious things. And even today, we have some people that still believe you can't be cutting down all these mounds and blocking these paths and that, or they'll cause havocs. And of course, with fair, the fae or the fairies or whatever you want to call them, you can never prove it's them. You can never prove it wasn't just bad luck, like, bad luck. And that's the thing. You're never going to be able to prove unless you've worked with them, or someone that works with them, or someone that can go through and read the energy, or fairies have been invoked. You're never going to prove they did it. But if you've invoked them and you're working with the nice cuddly ones, and then all of a sudden a lot of bad stuff is happening too, you kind of have to look at that. And it's kind of a roundabout way, because I'm never comfortable working with them, because my mom was always very, very heavily into Ireland. As a young girl, I never liked normie stuff, you know what I mean? I never liked this and that, and just plain general Irish stuff. It wasn't I disliked it, it was just when you're a little child, it's boring. So, but I loved the stories. You tell me a story, I'm a happy camper. So I loved the quote-unquote fairy tales, which were, some were presented down as serious, some weren't. And I did not read about the tiny, cute little ones. I read about what they would call, the good folk, about the ones that are at least our size, if not bigger, and blah, and blah, and blah. And they terrified me. I never wanted a fairy. I know, a lot of young people today, they're like, I want a fairy. They all look like Tinkerbell, and they're all tiny. And as I got into Wicca, I noticed a lot of people were like, oh, they're so gentle, and they'll never hurt you, no matter which one you work with. Those are incredibly lucky people. Because I knew, even we would have stuff in our house, and my mom, even though she was Catholic, God bless her, because I don't remember her having a ton of Irish friends or anything that would have taught her this stuff. She's like, oh, that's just a brownie. You have enough havoc with the ones that come in and you can't shoo them out. But because we never fed them or anything, we never did anything for him, though. God's only nowhere is getting his food, that he was happy to stick around. And I don't know that he ever did anything. And it was just odd, because you kind of think, well, I'm not English or Irish or whatever. What are these beings doing in my house? But we always had a brownie, and a couple days ago, I saw him zipping around. I'm like, I haven't been putting out food. I put out food for the gods, unless he's going over there and having a nip of stuff, and it's never milk or butter bun or the traditional offerings. I do that maybe once a year on Samhain, so that they won't get ideas. It's kind of like paying the mafia off once a year, please go away. I respect you. Tons of love and kisses to you, but now please go away. It's please stay out of my life. And I don't say that to disrespect people that work with them, and they're only getting little tiny balls of sunshine. They're only getting these spiritual ones, because some people seem to have that luck. And by the way, luck of the Irish is actually an insult. Yeah, I read a lot. It's actually an insult, because I almost said luck of the Irish, and it's no, that's an insult. It means no luck at all. And I've just noticed some people just seem to luck out and they seem to work really well and they get like these very nice fairies. Of course, these people also work with like angels and stuff, so it may be they have so much of that light and sweetness and everything around them that the dark ones, and I don't like to use the term dark, but the ones that we would term dark because of our culture, and that's what comes to mind, those ones are just like, ugh, eh. It doesn't mean they'll never come around, but it seems like if you cultivate the kind of new agey crystal light power, not the journey, crystal light healing, high energy, white love, peace, everything. It seems like in general, those are the people that usually don't have problems. Like they'll just run into the sweetest spirits because they're already ooey gooey, sweet bundles of kitten fluff. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need people like that in the world. They balance out us cranky old people. They're like, "Rah." But yeah. And I've worked with all sorts of spirits. I've worked with dragons, gargoyles, what have you. But with them, it's sort of this uneasy truce of if you absolutely have to come into my life, you can, but I'd much rather you stayed away because I've heard nothing but bad. I know, God, all the stories end bad. Like any of the old stories from Ireland, like this lady gets invited somewhere for a christening, and a baby is burned, and they're putting the ashes in their eyes. This is a serious story, and when they put the ashes in their eyes, and this was interesting because it implied the fairies didn't have second sight on their own. They had to like burn an unbaptized baby. I swear to the gods, this isn't a book I have. And they would put the ashes on their eyes, and then they could like see and recognize each other, which was interesting because it kind of like implied that the fae did not have this power on their own. And the woman, she kind of had like they kind of have like the protectors in the stories, like you have the fairy that comes for you, and as long as you're by them, you won't be harmed. Well, she dabs her, hands in the ashes. She puts a little on the one eye. She doesn't put in both eyes. And something kind of happens when she comes up. She can't see anything out of that eye except for like the fae. She's kind of blind in that eye, but like she's out of fear. And she doesn't realize what eye she's seeing out of. And she sees the man that took her to this christening and not realizing, you kind of would realize that if people burn an unbaptized child and you see ashes, they're not regular people. But she went up and she thanked him because she said, after all of this that happened, I've had such a good life. And she says, but please, the eye put in the ashes in. I can't normally see out of it. He turns around and he goes, oh, I can fix that. And he blinded her in the other eye, too. And that's like usually how the stories end. Like, you thought you got the gold and you got leaves or something worse. And it usually does not turn out well for the human in a story. It's kind of like this unspoken agreement that, oh, it's great to have respect for them, but leave them alone. Leave them be. They don't want to associate with you. And Captain Pirate Foxy's taken over. They don't want to associate with you. And just kind of leave them alone. It's okay to give them a respectful nod as they're passing through, but don't actively engage them. And that's kind of like the path I've always followed because I've never been comfortable with them. I had someone try to push me once into working with them, and she was always high as a kite all the time. I should consider this. And I just had pure chaos in my life until, I and the gods like got stuff back to normal. So it's like, no. But, if you do work with them and you have good relationships, that's wonderful as well. It's just like, for me, it's always been like, no, I don't want that chaos back in my life, because that's the way it was. It was like pure chaos shadowed on your front steps, and it was just like going all through your life, and everything was topsy-turvy and everything else. And if you do work with them, be very careful what you ask for, because you never know how they're going to give it to you. And I wouldn't call them evil, I wouldn't call them benevolent, or anything in the most case, depending on who you're working with, though you do have to be aware, um, they're just like people. They're like, if you took like everybody from a big city and you put them in a room, you wouldn't know if you're talking to a nice, decent person or you're talking to a crazy mad dog killer that's gonna, slit your throat in the middle of the night. You're gonna get, in a huge population, you're gonna get one of each, but you just don't know which one is which, because a crazy mad dog killer is not gonna act that way if he wants to get close to you. He's gonna act real nice. So do proceed with caution if you're gonna work with them. There are books out there. I don't recommend books to people because I'm like, well, people will probably be drawn to what they need. I do think I have a few that come in and go out, and I've been blessed that, probably don't want to say that word either. There's a long list of words you don't want to say around them. I've been fortunate that they are of the benevolent kind, and when I'm spooked out around Halloween about the negative kind, they're like, oh, it's okay, those nasty things will stay outside. But in general, I would say there's definitely an allure with them. There's definitely a way to get trapped into their lore and to start aching to go into the fairy kingdom. And if you find that starting to happen to you as you're reading or you're doing stuff, then, step back, because you will never get out of the kingdom. Should they take you away, you will never get out. And as wonderful as that sounds at first, basically the living taking their trapped, kind of like in the land of the dead, the land of the fae. It's kind of like intertwined. You're trapped there forever, and you never get to live out the life you were going to. And that might not sound so bad at first, but we don't know anyone that got trapped there forever, so we don't know what happens after the fairy tale, so to speak, portion ends. We don't know what happens when the feast ends. We don't know what happens whenever. So, do proceed with caution. If you find yourself giving in too much to glamours, and it's distracting you or becoming a destructive habit, be careful. That is a habit. I don't think they do it out of cruelty. I think it's just as old gods or the dead or however you see them. It's an innate power with them. I don't think they do it to be cruel, but I don't think their minds, as many people have said, I don't think our minds function any way at all as human minds do. They're not going to have your morality, so, be careful. The benevolent ones are close enough to us and love us enough that they've kind of learned how our minds work, but at the same time, you don't know everything that's going on, so, do proceed with care. They are quite real. They are not usually the fluffy Tinkerbell type. I don't know what people are seeing when they see the little tiny ones. There may be so many huge, vast amount of races that might account for the teeny tiny ones, or it might just be projection into our mind or whatever. And there's a scary thought for you. What you see may not at all be what they actually look like, and it may be being spirits. They have no set forms, as our gods have no set forms. They can only appear as what you see. So if you only believe in tiny little sparkly fairies, that's all you're ever going to see. If you're like me and you believe in the old school terrifying fairies that are going to come in the coach and grab you or blind you or like do something terrible to your crops, you'll probably see more like that. So, and Captain Pirate Fox is taking over again. My apologies. If you like what you see, like, comment, and subscribe. I don't discourage or encourage people to work with them. I think if you're really meant to work with them, you will. But proceed with caution. It's not a game. They are dangerous. You can't say that enough. They are dangerous. They can kill a man dead. People like to say, oh, these beliefs in the fairies were just because people were primitive and didn't know any better. No, they can kill a man dead. Any god or spirit worth working with, they can snap your neck fairly easily. Most cases are not going to, but, don't ever make them mad. Don't ever thank them. Don't ever say praise be to God or something like that in front of them. You'll learn what the ones you work with will and will not tolerate. Usually, if you're given a guide, and most people suggest you get one, um, you'll get a guide that understands human psychology enough that they'll understand when you mess up. So if you say the dreadful T word, or you accidentally give them a gift, meaning well or something, you know, like Dobby with his pillowcase, um, they're not going to be the ones to punish you so much. They might be mad at you, but they'll understand you're just a tiny little human. You have tiny little human ways, and you're way out of your league working with them. But, you know, usually that's going to be the one that's going to be your ally. Just, you know, for the love of the gods, be careful. Be careful, because I could tell you experiences of, like, when I'd really been into research and everything would go crazy and just glasses would shatter for no reason and all this other crazy stuff would go on, and it would be like a god of chaos was running through on a rampage, and it was not Loki. It was not Loki. It was just, you have to be careful which ones you work with. So if you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe. Sorry to make it a scary video, but you know, I love and respect everybody in the universe, but some beings I'm like, no, you're out of my league. I will mess up and do something, and I'm not getting smited here. So yeah, and they're not a joke. They're real. Some people even make a religion out of working with them, which is, you know, it's completely valid experience. And just be careful. You know, don't look at it as a game. Don't look at it as a joke. Don't look at it as, I'm bored, I'm gonna go to the good folk and rile them up. That'll probably be the last thing you ever do. Okay, so if you like what you see, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. It's just like, I want to give you like 15 more minutes of warning, but I don't want to frighten you from working with them, but I do want you to give it a good long thought. They're not a game any more than Loki's a game, or Magic's a game, or anything else, and you always see these spooky stories on Reddit or something because some bored punk decided to play with them and got his little tail set on fire. Okay, I will see you guys later. Have a happy 4th. It's actually the 4th of July now. Happy 4th of July. And yeah, they're very interesting. I love reading the stories, love reading the lore. I love some of the ones I've met very deeply, but all that said, I'm still terrified of them because I've read the old stories and they're nothing to muck about with. Okay, guys, I will see you later. Bye-bye.